And now we're starting the recording of the presentation. So this is going to be a 45-minute presentation followed by a Q&A. During that portion, we're going to answer any of the frequently asked questions that y'all have or anything that's important as far as y'all want answered during the Q&A. But y'all can also type throughout in case y'all don't see the screen moving, or if the audio goes out, feel free to type in the login. We have people standing by to help with issues as well. So if y'all have any questions that we don't get to throughout the meeting or time elapses, you can always send an email to info@optimumcs.com. That's our email address that will be able to field any questions, and we can get back to you at any point in time. Once again, that's info@optimumcs.com. Okay, so let's get started with the presentation. I'm Daniel Goodwin from Optimum Consultancy Services, and this is our co-presenter, Terry Simpson from Nintex. So Optimum is a premier software solution and digital consulting firm transforming business through the power of people, technology, and automated processes. We actually help organizations gain competitive advantage through increasing efficiency and driving digital transformation by employing strategic planning, innovative technologies, and streamlined processes to deliver amazing client experiences. Actually, our customer-centric delivery and execution methodology is designed with our clients' business strategies in mind and always have their goals in mind as well. We leverage our business, technology, and processes through a team of highly certified technological software development and project management talents to deliver high-quality and cost-effective, timely solutions. We offer a full suite of software services and solutions, including IT strategic consulting and custom software development, as well as business process optimization and automation with Nintex, which we're actually here to talk about today. So as we go through this, here's a slew of companies we've actually done a bunch of projects with. From oil and gas companies to healthcare to law firms and real estate, we have a vast amount of experience in the private sector, as well as collaborating with several different independent school districts and collegiate systems with equal experience in the public sector. We believe that successful implementation and great results start with the right vision, strategy, industry experience, and a wide range of capabilities, and that's what you can expect when you partner with us. As you can see through all of these logos, we've helped a plethora of companies with automating particular business processes. So feel free to reach out to us throughout the presentation or after to learn more about our services and client success stories. By the way, we're actually offering a free consultation for any organization that has joined the webinar today. So let's hop right into the presentation. Okay, so what is business automation? It's the leveraging of technology to transform and streamline a manual process so that it becomes more cost-effective and time-efficient. It's no secret that the world is moving faster than ever. For individuals and businesses alike, the ability to complete tasks quickly isn't just a nice-to-have quality, it's actually expected these days. So to keep pace in an ultra-competitive marketplace, it's essential for organizations to streamline their work wherever and whenever they can. Not simply to keep businesses running, but actually to push us forward as well. It takes everyday manual business processes, such as filling out and filing redundant documents, and the tedious tasks of onboarding new employees before we start to ask ourselves, hey, there has to be an easier way, and there must be an easier way to do this as well. And there is, through the power of automation and through the power of workflows, to perfectly tailor and enhance your business processes. For example, the next time you create or use a form, consider what is the bigger picture of this form. Does the form drive any other processes? Are there any other forms that work in tandem with this particular form? What most organizations find in answering this question is that it's now, no matter how simple the form may be or how little the data is being collected, there most certainly needs to be a process or workflow running behind it all. So I keep using this word workflow, but what actually is workflow? By definition, it's a series of repeatable activities needed to be carried out to complete a task, which means it is a building block of any business after all. And at the end of the day, when we look into our businesses, we really just see it's a set of daily processes. Regardless of which industry you're in or what kind of business you do, chances are all of us have things that we repeat on a daily basis. When a form is actually connected to a workflow, it actually provides the fields related to that task at hand, but it also has a variety of workflow variables and data points. On the process side of this, the workflow can condense or expand line items, send and receive data from apps both on premises and in the cloud, and assign task-specific forms to users containing the fields that needed for the task, which makes no form an island, and all forms are basically front ends for these individual processes. When we start to look at forms, you got to understand they're a part of a bigger picture. In most cases, no matter how simple the form is or the data being collected, there needs to be processes to make it more efficient and to make it flow into the daily consistency to make us more productive and successful. And now we start to look into the power of automation and the workflow on how this happens. There's been a parallel of evolution of forms from simple structured documents to the primary interface used to collect data by a variety of enterprise and process applications. For example, what is the motivation behind collecting the data in the first place, and how will this data be used once it's actually collected? Whether for an expense form or operating a new employee, collecting data will always be a means to an end. In a business process, that is the only way to reap the benefit from this end. So the real value comes from automating business processes and informing people and stakeholders at key decision points. None of this should have been a 31-page document. It all should be reduced and consolidated much more into forms like these that are easier for people to fill out, clients to understand, and for all of the processing needs to be tailored into automation. So, as we continue, most enterprises are now facing the increasing demands of digitizing their forms and automating their workflows to stay competitive and save big on time and operational costs. Digitizing automated forms allows organizations to transform their workflows into rich business applications. As we see, there's tons of applications through each individual workflows connect to bring you to the bigger picture. So what can we do to configure and consolidate these from individual collections of data points all the way into a streamlined process that can automate for most of us to get our jobs and daily duties done at the most effective and precise moments. The business form of today has actually been constantly evolving. Initially, it's conceived as just a paper document, but the forms nowadays are electronics and can surface on a number of different facets, from desktops to laptops or to mobile devices. Pretty much any electronic device that you have or can imagine has the capability of transforming your forms and sending them wherever they need to be at any given point in time. Basically, if you want to empower your team to work from anywhere, whether it's a late night email response from the couch or having them still be productive from a hammock in Hawaii, we need to figure out a way to optimize all the software in our programs. When you begin to better manage everyday routines like we just discussed, it adds up to more productivity, a stronger bottom line, happier people, and opportunities for teams to focus on more strategic and inspiring endeavors that are consistently aimed at driving revenue and hitting your goals. And if you think about processes like these, they all have something in common. They originate from anywhere in the organization. They represent the vital pathways of procedures that make the company run. Many people perceive them to process this distract from real work. And no one wants your distractions in the middle of the workday. But because of this, they receive less attention to detail, and they often make the most mistakes where these distractions lie. Taken together, they can all add up to a significant amount of time and money. which we all want to be the most cost effective to get our businesses on track and produce with the lowest overhead. And yet, if they're ignored, they rarely are considered the worth time of traditional business processes because they're not considered central, so they get overlooked and they don't get placed as a high value. But when you take those dollars and thousands, added up across the quarter and across the year, we start to realize if you ignore these issues, it can obviously add up onto your expenses later on and resulting into the least efficient way to operate. So here are some of the scenarios that process automation can be applied through. And we got these in very different fields, from information technology to human resources, all the way down to sales and marketing. If you take IT into example, the provision of users' accounts or tracking projects to improve quality and control testing, IT department can always utilize it. If we start looking into your finances and finance department, you can simply budget requests and expense approvals, but invoicing processes and data accuracy and visibility, that's something we can all utilize to help us. So if you start going into human resources, which we're going to figure out and look more deeply into today as Terry presents our demo, it's going to show you how to expedite recruiting and onboarding, but you can also do a slew of different things like managing personal time off requests and performance reviews. Marketing and sales, you can constantly use this to go through pretty much everything as far as queries and feedback to managing purchase orders and servicing agreements through your procurement areas. We can all use optimization as it goes through. So when we start to get into the HR processes, we look into this, and the whole processing of your HR is why we gathered for this webinar. It's the bringing of new employees that requires forms, approvals, equipment, and a fair amount of time, but it also requires connecting with multiple staff members to ensure your new hires' experience is a good one, because we want all of our new hires to be successful in whatever endeavor we've placed them in, and for them to be as effective and as quickly as possible. So how do you manage to keep track of everything and everyone while also remaining compliant? The answer is actually through an automated sequence of events that alert multiple departments and trigger multiple onboarding processes, all with a single click of a button. So let's take this into example. If you go into some of your HR time-consuming aspects, did you know HR spends 50% of its time processing employee information, and they also spend 40% of their time doing administrative work, whether it's re-entering data or from one system to another. They're consistently filling out paperwork. So I'm sure we've all had experiences in these particular scenarios and understand how time-consuming it can be just to get one employee started and up to date on everything in speed, which we need to automate this. That way it can be done while all the other tasks and daily duties at hand are being accomplished, with setting us towards our corporate goals. So today, why would we want to improve HR processes? Well, if you can figure out specific ways you can mitigate risks with legality, because the last thing any of us want is a legal issue to be because we missed a very vital point in our contract. And obviously, once everything enhanced, it's going to improve productivity. And if we can improve productivity and have everything automated, it will have a lot more accurate data and reduce the paperwork that's involved to be compliant with these issues. But overall, most of us want to make sure we reduce costs, since we're very highly into the business aspect of this. And if we can reduce cost and improve the approval process while making us productive and accurate as possible, then everyone's going to be happy, and you will boost employee satisfaction as we go through this. So this is a typical process that we go into as far as onboarding and getting a new employee started. And as you can see, the several steps as we go through this can be they aren't necessarily consolidated, but can be streamlined to be much more efficient instead of having to have each individual go through this process, be approved by one particular person, go to the next step, be that approved, and then continuously going back and forth and spending a very heavy amount of time on doing this. So, as we go through this portion, which Terry will show you how we can streamline the mass majority of this in this demo in a few moments, we're going to go ahead and take a look on how can you think of imagining on improving through your company some of these processes. I'm sure the mass majority of us go through this, so what would you want out of your business and your model to go through a particular event or steps to make your process more effective and have a higher degree of success? So now I'm going to pass it over to Terry and let him give you an explanation of who Nintex is and give y'all's live presentation and demo of the automation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I appreciate the introduction and the opportunity to come and present for you guys today. So Daniel made some really good points on the HR onboarding process. So I want to take and give you a really quick introduction into who Nintex is. And as it says on the screen here, a platform really to make you work better. So it allows you to increase productivity, cut costs, really drive some revenue, and overall satisfaction can go up a good bit. You know, everything we do at Nintex is done in a no-code type of way, so that we want to allow you know, project managers, business analysts, those kind of non-technical folks to be able to go out and build workflows on their own. So really great platform to be able to do those kind of things. So a lot of momentum going on at Nintex. I think we're going to end this year with probably over 8,000 customers, over 1,600 partners across many different countries. So we've had a lot of growth over the last several years across the platform and suite of products that we have. Now, we have a good bit of customers that range across a ton of different industries, whether it's technology, a lot in the government space as far as, you know, cities, towns, federal government, all kinds of good stuff out there that you can leverage the platform, along with retail services and all kinds of good stuff. So a lot of familiar names that you may see on the screen here. Now, as we go into the next slide here, you'll see a kind of introduction into the suite of products that we're going to go over today. And we're not going to have a chance to go into these individually, but I at least wanted to give you an introduction into what Nintex offers. You have the core workflow that we're really known for, and Forms over here on the left-hand side, along with our mobile platform, which is really nice. You can pick up your phone right now and download the app into your mobile device, and if you'd like to take that app and rebrand it so that it's your company's name and logo on there, you can use our tool called App Studio. So basically, you take the free one that you can download, and then you can put App Studio right on there as well. And then we've got the document generation capabilities in our analytics tool as well. So really, really easy to be able to do that. And I think, Daniel, I'm going to take the presenter back if you don't mind. I'm assuming I'm getting the screen shown okay here. And,
I apologize, Terry. I was just trying to figure out how to get it back to your screen and allow you to do your demo.
Nope, that's perfectly fine. There we go. I should be sharing now. So all you got to do is leverage the document generation component. So that's really, really cool to be able to take a template that's in a Word document, inject the information from the form and the workflow right into it, and then you can output a PDF and start to do things with it. And if you want to run analytics on all that, you can do that as well. And you're probably wondering about the bottom of the screen down here. You see several different platforms as far as 365 and Dropbox and all that good stuff. You can integrate with all this stuff. So if you think about Nintex, it can sit right in the middle of all your applications that you're using in your work environment, and we can reach out and touch each of those to integrate it. So we call it Workflow as a Service to have the ability to reach out and touch with those. So in the onboarding process, that may be relevant if you're using something like ADP or Workday or some HR system. It'd be nice to leverage that, let it be the authoritative copy of the data, and reach out and use that data in the onboarding, offboarding, whatever you're doing around that process there. So let's jump into the fun part of today, I think, and do the actual demonstration here. Now, I'm going to show you a 2016 SharePoint environment, and I want to focus on the HR process. In my particular environment I've got a lot of processes that I've automated just from a demonstration perspective. It could be accounting, IT, legal, you see sales and marketing, just tons of different examples. But I'm going to focus on the HR example today. Two examples that I love to do demos on is one being the time off request, the other one being the onboarding or hiring process. And I'm going to go ahead and click on a list right here. And so what we have is a list in SharePoint, and this is going to be the list of new employee requests that are coming in. What's fun about this is you could even start the process a little further upstream with the job application form that you would fill out on a website, and you could even bring it in here. But let's assume that there's a manager out in the business, and they're getting ready to hire an employee. And what they would do is come out to the SharePoint environment and just click on New Item. And what they're going to do is be presented with the Nintex form that allows them to bring on this employee. So let's go ahead and I'm going to hire myself here. So Terry, actually got this backwards here. So Simpson, Terry, fill this out. So I'm going to have a email address in here. For my personal email address, I'm going to be hired on as a manager, and let's say I'm going to be hired within the finance group at the organization. And my manager is going to be Jane Doe. So let's say that that's what going to be there. And we'll go ahead and put a hire date. Let's say we're going to hire me on Friday, and my salary is going to be $1,000 right there. So ultimately, someone in the business is requesting to hire this individual, and we're going to go ahead and hit save. And what's nice about this is that Nintex form is going to write to the SharePoint list, and you'll see the entry that is going to show up right there. And so I've got my entry in there. And at that point, the workflow is going to fire off immediately and begin the process of onboarding this particular employee. Now you'll see over here on the right-hand side with the status on the previous two is, the request has been sent to IT. That means we're in the process of onboarding them, but we haven't quite gotten there just yet because we just now submitted the request over here. Now what I want to do is I want to jump over to my boss's computer, and you'll see right here that I've logged into a little RDP session. So I'm in my boss's computer at this point, and you'll see that my boss just got an email that says, hey, a task has been assigned to you regarding the hiring of, click on this because it's Terry Simpson, and we want to approve the hiring starting of $1,000. So all the information is in here. And what's cool about this is that as the manager, I could respond to the request right here and go and click approve. I can even open up and look at the actual employment agreement that's right here using our document generation tool if you want to see that. But what I like to do is leverage what we call lazy approval and be able to just hit reply to the email. And when we do that, we can literally just type in the word approve and hit send. And that's going to process the workflow right on to the next step so that we can hire this individual. So very low touch point, for Jane to come out and approve this request. Most likely, she's already aware of it, but if she needed the details, she could get all that. So, but she has everything that she needs in order to make the decision right here in the email. So if Jane's out on her mobile device, maybe she's traveling, she can do the approval right there and doesn't even have to have access to that particular SharePoint environment. So the workflow is then going to move on and start the onboarding process and create the account and do all that good stuff. At any time, we can always come out here and see where the workflow is in the current process. One of the things we can do is come out and look at workflow history and see where the process is. So we'll see here that we started it. It's been idle for a minute now since I've been talking. And we see where it's at in the process. That's been completed. We're waiting on manager approval. That approval should light up green here in just a second. And once it goes down the approved route, it's going to come over here and get the employment agreement in place, and it's going to eventually end up over here getting the IT request started right there. So really nice to see where that is in the process. Of course, that's a little bit more of an admin view in the background that I'm showing you right there. But the dashboard here of where we are in the process is up to date. If I go ahead and refresh the screen here, we'll see its request has been sent to IT and that it is in progress. So what I'm going to do, it's a little bit of a quick demo today, but I want to jump in and show you a little bit of the tools and how we built the form and got the workflow started all right here. Now what's nice about the Nintex platform is that when you do your installation, the tool shows up right here in the ribbon interface. So it doesn't require an installation on your local machine. You can literally just install it and get it running pretty quick, just an add-on to SharePoint. We'll have the forms right there and the workflow engine right there. And what's cool about this is when you click on the Nintex Forms button up in the ribbon, you're going to immediately be brought into the Form Designer canvas that you see on the screen right here. And the thing that I love about this is that it builds the form just like you see it right here on the page. I literally didn't make any changes to this. It just took all the fields and stacked them right on top of each other. So it's a pretty plain Jane kind of form that's out there, but if you wanted to, you could start to move these elements around as much as you wanted. So, we could shrink up the last name field, take the first name field, bring it over here on the right, right beside that, shrink down the first name field and bring it over here as well. So you have complete control over what you would like to do with your individual form as you go out and build it. So it's all a drag and drop interface that you can work with within the platform. So you can make this as pretty as you want to. And I like to do things like this where you make it pretty concise and then come in and maybe add some introductory text up here at the top. We have all the controls over here on the left-hand side, so if we want to bring anything over here, like maybe put another button on the page, normally I'd stick that right at the bottom, but we could open up each of these individual controls, and we could even modify them. So if I want to change this to be a submit button instead of save and submit, and then maybe have this redirect to another page, I could come in the configuration and change that as much as you would like to. So very, very friendly drag and drop interface to be able to build your form. And what we do is we add a lot of controls over here on the left-hand side to give you increased functionality. So a lot of this stuff you can't even do with SharePoint right out of the gate. But we can do calculated values, geolocation if you want to know where they're at, images, labels, page breaks for PDFs, and panels. This is great for the onboarding process because you can put a panel on here, and the HR group may want an entire section dedicated to them that only they can see. That way the employee being onboarded or the manager who made the request can't see that field. And you can leverage the rules engine, which you'll see up here. You can click on rules and define rules for who can see that field and who can't see it. Also use things like the repeating section to add additional items in here. So in the onboarding process, maybe I'm going to request assets. So I have a repeating section that says, request a key card, add a new row, I need a parking permit, add a new row, I need a cell phone, add a new row, I need a laptop, all that good stuff. And then we can even do the web requests and SQL requests as well. And I really enjoy these type of controls because you could just drag them right over, and if some of the data is going to go to a SQL database, whether you're pulling or pushing the data back and forth, you can bring that over here and leverage this information. And I really like it because you can come in and just configure this thing and identify the server and the database if you're familiar with SQL. And I like the feature of being able to come up here and then test your connections by clicking on the Run Now button. So that once your action's configured, click the Run Now, it'll make sure that you can connect and get the appropriate information back that you're looking for before you go out and publish your form and start working with it there. So a lot of really nice things to do, and that works out well if you have an HR system that you're interacting with, and you need to make that web request to maybe create all this information in that database. So that way you don't have to go over to ADP or Workday and create the record all over again. Let the workflow do that for you. And so that way when you do decide to onboard the employee, you don't have to do the data entry. And then we've got some other stuff over here on the left where we can, go look up other list information or use term sets from the term store, the manage metadata right here. And then all the columns within the list obviously are right here on the left-hand side so that we can pull all those in. So a lot of flexibility in being able to build out this particular form. This form's pretty plain, but you can get pretty fancy in building out other forms within your environment as much as you want. So really, really nice to be able to do that. All right, so that is the Forms tool. Very easy to use. If you use our responsive designer, it's all responsive for all the devices you want to go in. This is our classic designer that you're looking at right here. And you can also import, export these workflows or this form as much as you want. So that way, if you like the form I've built, I can send it to you in a little email file, or if you've got a development environment and you want to move it to production, you can do that as well. But that's the Form Designer tool in an overview, and that's a pretty quick overview of it. There's a lot more that we could dive into there, but I think for the sake of time in today's webinar, we'll just kind of give you a brief overview. Now, the other thing that I want to really focus on today is the workflow component of this that you saw there at the beginning. And what you can do in the ribbon is you can come over here to the workflow settings, and you'll see all the way down here at the bottom that we can either create a workflow or manage a workflow on this particular list. And once you click on that, you'll then be brought into the Nintex Workflow Designer canvas that you see on the page right here. And this is really what I love about the tool so much. And when we made that value proposition a little bit earlier in the webinar, this is really where it comes into play, because you can come in to your organization and you can really map out your requirements. And sometimes that's the hardest part, is getting everybody to agree on what the process is. And you can map it out on a whiteboard, and then come in here and open up the Nintex Designer and just start building it out. We've got all the actions over here on the left-hand side, and we can just drag and drop those actions right over here on the right side of the canvas. So if I want to send an email out first, I just drag and drop it over, drop it right there, and we start to configure it. And when you hit configure, it just brings up the screen that says, what do you want that notification, who do you want it to go to, and what do you want it to say? And so we can do some fun things over here. So over here, one of the things I'm going to do is clear out that email field. You saw on my request, I put in my personal email address. But at this point in the process, we're ready to bring you on as a full-time employee. So therefore, we want to get that personal email address out of there, and we want to get the real email address in there for the IT group, for the organization. And we'll show you that here in just a minute. But one of the things that you can do is you can use these actions to really build out whatever you want. And I like to look at this as a really cool Lego kit over here on the left-hand side, and you can build whatever you'd like to build. So like in the logic and flow section, there's a lot of conditionality in here, meaning we can do like a state machine, which is what you see right here, meaning the state machine allows you to define the pieces of the process. So this state machine simply says, well, what processes do you have, or what sections do you have? So you go in here, you'll see we prepare the contract, then we have manager permissions, we have the employment agreement, then we have the IT request, and ultimately we may run into problems along the way. So those are the different states that we have, or stages you could call it. And here we're going to determine where we're going to start first, meaning the manager permission. So what's cool about that is as you add additional states, it just keeps going further out the screen as you work out this diagram right here. Now over here on the left-hand side, we're going to come and prepare the contract first. So we're going to get a URL, we're going to grab a Word document, inject some information into it. And what's cool down here at the bottom is we've got this little change state. And this simply says, hey, when I get to this point in the workflow at that process, I want to change states. So I want to go over to the next stage. Instead of preparing the contract, I want to go to manager permissions next. So I'll hit save there, and it jumps from this section to this section. And then over here, we're going to get that manager's approval. And I'll open this up here. And that's the email that we got from Jane Doe, or that Jane Doe received, which was the boss back at the beginning of my demonstration. And in here, you can simply come out and just configure this thing to tell it exactly what you want it to do, meaning who does it get assigned to. So in this situation, it's going to be the individual making the request, their manager. You'll see down here the different outcomes, reject, approve, and we could add other ones if we wanted to. We could say, let's have a revision cycle and put revise in here if we wanted to. And then you can have the behaviors of the outcomes, the email that goes to that individual's right here. So remember when I clicked on, or I had the ability to click on each of those, they're all contained in here. And we make it super, super easy because you can come right in here and you can reference any of the items in your fields. In the fields in the form, I should say. So we'll see those over here. So if I want to put the first name of the person right in the email, just double click on that, and you'll see it referenced right there. So that way when the workflow runs, sends the email, whatever the first name was, it was in the form, it's now in the email when it gets sent out right there. And I like this as well because we put a lot of options in here. If you want to send out a reminder, let's say we want to send a reminder every hour. Well, actually, let's send 4 reminders every hour. We could be really annoying, and then we could just put a little subject down here. And in here, they'll get that email every hour and give them a little nudge to approve this item. And then maybe if that's not getting it done and they need to escalate it or you need to escalate it in the workflow process, you could either maybe complete the task or delegate it to somebody else. And maybe after 8 hours, I'll delegate it to another individual and we could choose who that person is and then also maybe put some comments. So that's just one action around the task assignment. And we have just a lot of ability in there to come in and configure. Now, this isn't customization at all. This is all just configuration. So anybody on this call has the ability to come in and do that. And then down here, you'll see that once that manager makes a decision, they're either going to reject it or approve it. If they do approve it, we're going to go right on to the employment agreement. If not, we're going to reject it. And then it's going to go into the problem encountered because we rejected it or the managers rejected it for some reason. So now we need to deal with it. But assuming it goes down the happy path, we can go to that employment agreement. We can check to see if we've got a DocuSign account. And if we do, we could send out the email and we can send that employment agreement to them. And then ultimately what we're going to do here is we're going to start another workflow that's assigned to the IT group. The request here is that we want the IT group to now go out and provision the user. Let's create their Active Directory account, and let's go ahead and get their email address started. And the IT department has their own workflow that does all of that. And that's what's really nice about this is that the HR group can manage this component of the workflow, meaning get the employment agreement assigned, and then IT can take over right here and do their piece of it, and they have their own workflow that they manage. But the two groups work together in that process. So really, really handy to be able to do all that. Now, what I'd love to do, and keep it in time here, is I want to show you a few actions over here on the left-hand side to highlight a couple of the features. I've kind of finished up on the demonstration of that particular story. I want to show you a couple of the actions on the left-hand side, and maybe we'll get to the 15 till mark, and then we can open it up for a couple of questions, as Daniel had mentioned there in the beginning. Now, the commonly used actions that are over here that are used a lot, things like the flexi task, that's the task assignment that I just showed you right there. Also, the Hawkeye Analytics ones are really common as well. And this communicates to the Nintex Analytics tool, basically identifying what data you want to communicate and run analytics on, which is the beginning beacon. And then we can place the ending beacon throughout the workflow. And you can figure out how long it takes each part of the onboarding process to take. Because we could put an ending beacon right here after the manager approves it. We could put another ending beacon in to the IT request, and we could figure out how long it takes on average for the manager to approve something. How long does it take IT to get the accounts created? So when you evaluate how long the duration is for the onboarding process, this gives you data to back that up. Now you can bring your own custom actions in over here. So if you've got an HR system like ADP or Workday, you can create your own custom connectors over here and bring these in and go out and maybe get the leave balance if it's a time off request, or deduct those hours, meaning update the leave balance if my vacation time was approved. Also, we can do a ton of integrations with other things, and they're actually in the connectors up here is what I was referencing. A lot of the core things that you can do with just out-of-the-box SharePoint stuff like check items in and out, and convert documents, and then we can do all that in reverse. You see all the delete actions down there on the left-hand side. Also, document generation. This is a big differentiator for Nintex because not very many platforms can do the document generation piece. So one of the things we're not doing in this onboarding workflow that I would recommend folks to do, and it actually happened to me when I was onboarded at Nintex, is that you can generate the onboarding workflow paperwork with this one action called document generation. So that happened to me at Nintex. I got an email my first day. It had one PDF document, and I actually signed all of it via DocuSign. And the HR group didn't have to create my onboarding paperwork package, the workflow did it for us automatically. And I could simply open it up. It was all tailored to me. It had my name and address, had everything already filled out. And my manager, when they filled out the form, had all the appropriate data in there, and I probably had 20, 30 pieces of paper to just sign really quick with DocuSign, and it took it all care of for us automatically. So document generation is a significant time saver in the organization with things that you can do. Also, we can come in and set field values, modify permissions, update items. So if you're using this as a case management system or maybe a ticketing system, you can update the values of those as you're working on the items. Also, all the conditional stuff you see here in the logic and flow area as far as doing things in parallel versus the state machine, conditions, run if statements. Maybe you want to loop through items in a list. For each item in the list, I want to do something. So a lot of really cool stuff that you can do inside the workflow. That's really steering the ship as far as I want to fast forward, rewind the workflow, or jump ahead. All can do in there. Lots of operations. If you've ever tried to calculate a date in the SharePoint environment, it's pretty hard to calculate a date. We make it super, super simple with this calculate date option here. Also, your compliance folks will love to log the history so that as you're working on a particular onboarding process, you can log as much information you want in the SharePoint history list. Pause the workflow in the HR process. Maybe you want to have a 30-day review after the employee has been on board for 30 days. Well, let the workflow then pause for 30 days and come back and add an item to your calendar there at the end. So really, really nice to be able to do that. And then we can stop and start workflows and do all that. The other thing that I like, at least in the on-prem environment, you can do this in 365 for 365 accounts, is we can do a lot of provisioning. So we can come out and create the user. We can add them to an Active Directory group. We can actually create the Active Directory groups in here and create sites. And then we can do all that in reverse as far as decommissioning. It's not only about onboarding employees, sometimes it's much more time sensitive to offboard an employee, because if the employee is getting ready to leave, you don't want their credentials to work when they walk out the door. And that's a little bit much more of a time sensitive matter than onboarding is a little slower process because it takes several days. So this is great for even offboarding of employees. And then ultimately, we've got a bunch of user interactions down here of just little things around creating tasks and interacting with Outlook and calendars, just a lot of stuff that we can do there. So I'm going to go ahead and take a pause for a minute since we are 15 minutes before the hour, and we want to make sure to open this up to questions. And so I'm going to take a pause and maybe turn this over to Daniel to facilitate some of the questions and answers portion of this and kind of go from there.
All right. Well, thanks, Terry. I appreciate that. That was a phenomenal demo. I thought you did exceptional. And, man, all the workflows, when you go through them, it just shows how much everything can loop together as far as being the most efficient way to go through processes as possible. It still stuns me on how many times back in the day at old companies I used to get stuck up on particular processes and then have to go and reach out and basically get confirmation about 10, 15 times from a particular event just to make sure it was done correctly. But I just wanted to reach back out and let everyone know that we still will have a free consultation with anyone that stayed through the entirety of the presentation, and we can get together at any time next week or the week after that and answer some of your more in-depth questions as far as what we're going to be doing as far as enhancing particular solutions that are tailored to each individual company. So if you want to, feel free to email or call us afterwards and we can set something up. Now that we move on through it, does anyone have any particular questions that they would like to ask for the group or have us go over with them, or just anything in general that we can help as far as answering or clarifying anything that came up throughout the presentation? As we go through this, hold on, I'm going through the chat box now. I'm looking for questions. Oh, and feel free, now y'all can unmute yourselves and continue to live chat with us if y'all want. Is everyone there? Any feedback? All right, thanks, Tony. You said no questions. Great presentation. No, I appreciate it. Good. No questions as well.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would add here in the end is as folks are, their wheels are turning a little bit on processes and thinking about what they can use this internally, I would definitely reach out to Daniel or Nushin or the folks at Optimum and take advantage of that free piece of consulting there on talking through that, whether it's Nushin or even myself. We can jump on the phone with you and just talk through how you might be able to automate a process and brainstorm some ideas. So it's definitely worth the free piece of conversation that they're offering for you. So you definitely get some value out of it.
True that, and we also have a bunch of different services that Nintex offers that we would take, God, it would take a long time to go over every individual facet, but there's a lot more we can show you as far as workflow automation and different sectors that it's effective in. So I'll be in contact with all of y'all very shortly, and we can go over some of the information that y'all would like to discuss afterwards. And I appreciate all of y'all taking time out of your lunch break and busy day to be with us. And thanks again, Terry, for presenting the demo for us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the invitation. It was fun today.
Oh, anytime. Well, all right. I hope everyone has a good afternoon and a good rest of the week, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks.
Bye.